to part 3 in my series on Mercedes ABC suspension. If you saw part 1 and part 2, you recall I made people qualify their comments. They had to be owners, they had to state facts. Most people stuck to this. There were a few, off the wall comments, but generally people stuck to the rules. And we got some really good comments. I've read through them, all of them, and I've even learned a few things, because there's nothing like the experience from owners that can attest to facts. And that's what the subject of this video is today. It's about the facts concerning the ABC suspension. Now, the same rules apply in this video. If you want to make a comment, you need to state that you have owned an ABC car, or you own one, what it is, and then express factual information about what experience you've had with it. I'm not going to listen to all this bloviating emotional statements. You have to remember that people watching these type of videos, particularly my videos, on YouTube are generally Mercedes enthusiasts. And a lot of them do their own work on their cars. You pretty much need to do that if you're going to own and enjoy one of these ABC cars. If you go on the internet and you do a search under consumer complaints, you're going to get a whole different story, and you're going to get a whole different tone of comments concerning this suspension that's on this SL500. So in this video, I want to talk about facts. I've got my list here. I went through the other night all the comments and made notes, and I came up with 15 facts. Now, I have to admit that some of these facts may be borderline opinion, but I'm going to defend them as facts, okay? So I'm going to start by using an example, the difference between opinion and fact. Now, a couple people said that the Mercedes ABC suspension is the best suspension in the world. Now, think about that for a little bit. Is that a fact, or is that opinion? In my humble opinion, that is an opinion, because you really can't prove it, and you have to qualify what you mean by best. That's the tough one. The best concerning what? Now, I would say that the fact would be this. This is number 1. The ABC suspension is truly amazing in handling and performance when it's functioning properly. Now, I don't think very many people can argue that that's not a fact. But if you say the Mercedes AB suspension is the best in the world, well, that's debatable, and that's an opinion. Okay, number 2, from what I've learned in the comments, the system itself has shown to be subject to multiple failures under 100,000 miles of use. When I say multiple failures, all kinds of failures. Failures of the pump, failures of the struts, failures of the hoses, failures of the accumulators, failures of the valve block. Number 3, people have reported that some failures occurred under 20,000 miles since new. That's a fact. Number 4, failures are hard to predict. Now, this is kind of borderline opinion, but think about it. If you've owned one of these cars, you have to admit that the failure is hard to predict. A lot of mechanical things you can say, okay, so many 1,000 hours, or so many 100 hours, you can expect some failure. In aviation, we would put a total time on the engine before it needed to be overhauled because of historical facts of failures of certain components like pistons, piston rings, rods, and so on. But with the ABC suspension, whoa, you don't know when it's going to fail. Now, number 5, some owners have reported going over 100,000 miles with no problems. Now, that's pretty amazing. That's one thing I learned from these comments, as long as they're stating fact here, that some of these systems have proven to be quite reliable with nothing more than, fluid flush. Number 6, driving an ABC car every day is better for the system than letting the car sit. I know that's a fact. I've proven it with my SL500 here. I let this thing sit too much during the winter months and did not drive it. And so those who have reported going over 100,000 miles with no problems are usually people that drive this car every day or almost every day. Okay. Number 7, it looks like the average repair bill when taking this to a shop or a dealer is $3,000 to $6,000, one-time visit. And many have reported multiple visits to the shop for repairs on their cars. Number 8, those who repair it themselves are more likely to keep the car. I think those who keep going to a shop and just every time the light comes on, they go and pay another bill, those are the people that tend to say, okay, you know, I'm trading this thing in. Number 9, and this is a fact, older ABC car values have really dropped. You know, if you poke around, you can probably get an SL500 like this with a few problems for $5,000 or even less. Some have purchased these at auction for amazingly low prices with ABC problems. Some have reported that they lucked out and it was only a minor problem to fix it. So it might be worth the risk. Number 10, prevention is worth a ton of cure. Not just a pound, but a ton of cure. Preventative maintenance will not guarantee 100% reliability, but it can pretty much guarantee lower repair bills down the road. Number 11, rubber hose failures are more likely after 15 years regardless of mileage. And I'm not a chemist, but I think these hoses deteriorate with the hydraulic fluid in the hose from just sitting. Maybe there's something about the fluid running through the hoses that make them last longer. Number 12, 20-year-old ABC suspensions are very expensive and time-consuming to repair for reliability. And that's what I'm faced with here on this car. This car is 20 years old this month. And to repair it so that it is a reliable daily driver is going to be pretty expensive. Now, if I do all the work, you know, maybe it's only going to be, you know, $6,000, $8,000 in parts and components. But imagine you take this to a shop, a commercial shop, and say, I want you to fix everything. I want you to replace the hoses, replace all the struts, replace, you know, on and on. Oh boy, you might be better off go buy a new car, okay? Number 13 is something I've learned, and I think some other people have learned as well. If you get a low pressure warning light, if you're using a scanner and the scan is reporting low pump pressure, do not assume that it is the pump. A number of people have reported after a low pressure warning or an ABC light coming on indicating low pressure after hitting a bump that they go replace the pump and it doesn't fix the problem. Just be forewarned, low pressure does not necessarily mean the pump is bad. Number 14, and this was reported by a couple people, and I've heard about this. If you have a catastrophic failure in the system, either through the pump coming unglued or accumulators rupturing and rubber and pieces going through the system, it's risky. And what I wrote here, major system repair after internal rubber or metal part failure is risky. It's almost like rebuilding an engine after major catastrophic failure. There's a risk to it. You may not get it completely fixed. And then number 15 is the second generation ABC appears to be more reliable due to system improvements and less complexity. Like in my case, maybe I should just sell this and move up to a 2008, 2009 ABC car. That would give me a newer car with less age to the components, and it would give me the upgraded system. So I'd like to know in the comments section of this video whether there are others of you who agree to this, who've owned, I would like to hear from those who have owned the early generation ABC and the later generation ABC, and share your experiences, particularly if you've worked on the car and you've been able to see differences of failure points and due to complexity or less complexity. That would be very helpful here. So that's my list of facts. Now, I'm sure there's other facts out there, but those are the facts that kind of popped out through all the comments that were left on the first two videos. Next, I want to talk about recommendations. And these are things I learned from reading the comments and also have learned from my own experience. So I'm looking over my list of recommendations here, and I hope this list will help you if you own an ABC car or are considering purchasing one. Number one, do a hydraulic fluid flush and rodeo procedure every 40,000 miles. Now, I did get a comment from a German person that said the German manuals recommend a flush, but the American dealer doesn't have a recommendation. But from what people have said and from reports, I think about 40,000 miles on this procedure is about right. And I think it's a really good idea. You know, if you do it every 30,000 miles, that's even better. So you might want to do it every 30,000 miles if you don't drive the car a lot. Number two, change the accumulators, all four of them, every 60,000 miles or 10 years, whichever occurs first. Failure of the accumulators and ignoring replacement can lead to all kinds of problems due to contamination throughout the system. Remember, the rubber diaphragm in the middle of the accumulator can come unglued and start to separate, and those little particles start going through the system. And that causes a lot of problems, and people have expressed that, okay? I recommend that you inspect the system for leaks every 5,000 miles. That's not difficult. On the SL500, you only have to jack up the left side, pull the front and rear tire, remove those plastic panels, and inspect all through the system, all the hoses, the struts. You know, look for any signs of leaks, because leaks are the things that are going to let you know trouble is coming down the road, if I could say that. Drive the car often. That's another one. People have reiterated this throughout the comments. Drive the car often, at least twice a month for a long drive. Don't just start it up, pull it out of your garage and go around the block. You need to drive it for at least an hour. Get out and drive it hard, corner hard, brake hard. Exercise the system. Sometimes wonder if hooking up the scanner and doing a rodeo every couple of years in your garage might be helpful. That's an opinion. I don't have any fact on that, but when I think about, you know, exercising the system, I'd be interested to hear if anybody's actually done that. Next recommendation, and this is from my own experience too. Do not, I'm going to repeat, do not ignore the red ABC light. Let's say you're driving along, you hit a bump. This happened to me, you know, a couple years ago, and the red light comes on. Not the gray one or the white one, the red one. You know, stop, car low. And you're saying, no, the car's not low, there's nothing wrong. A couple times, you know, I'd pull off and turn the key off and turn it back on. Everything's fine, I'd go on my way. Well, if you ignore that long enough, you may have more expensive repairs going down the road, because a lot of times that's an indicator that the accumulator or the accumulators are failing. And it's that, you know, it's that pressure spike that disrupts the sensors and, you know, throws out the warning. If your accumulators fail and you're going down the road and you're feeling this kind of rough buckboard ride, what that's doing is that pressure is going into that accumulator, and it's really hitting hard, and it's raising the pressure. We're already looking at 3,000 PSI, 200 bar or whatever, and you get that spike from failing accumulators, you're going to probably blow a strut, hose, or even the seals in your valve block. So do not ignore it. You know, if you're getting some red warnings when you're hitting bumps, it may be time to get those accumulators replaced. At least get it onto a scanner and find out what's going wrong. And then the final recommendation is to get a scanner. Now, 5 years ago, you couldn't get a scanner this good. You'd have to go to Star Diagnostics. But this new generation of scanners, which has only come out in the last year or so, can really help you if you own an ABC car, and these are not difficult to learn how to use. This is the scanner from Mechanic. It will allow me to read what's going on, check pressures, check sensors, and even do the rodeo procedure after or during the process of doing a fluid flush. So this is my top recommendation for you ABC owners, is to pick up one of these scanners. It's very, very helpful. Now, this is the end of this video. You remember the last video, I ended it kind of abruptly, and I said, I have 3 choices to make. Somebody said, why did you end that video so abruptly? Well, I was undecided. I didn't know. So I have 3 choices, and those choices are, do I fix the ABC suspension in this SL500? Fix it. And by fixing it, I mean not just haphazard, not just, replacing a boot here and doing a flush there. I've got indications of other things going on. Number 2, sell the car. Now, I could sell this car, not get much for it. Now, for you enthusiasts out there, this is a great way to get a deal on one of these cars. Find one that has some problems. You might get it for $3,000 or $4,000, take the risk, you fix it, you got a $100,000 car for cheap. And then the final choice is to convert the car. Take out all the hydraulic system, remove the hydraulic struts, and put in coil over shock absorbers. Make it a conventional system. People are doing that. People who have gotten tired of these $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000 repair bills have said, okay, if I'm going to keep the car, I'm converting it. So that's what I'm still pondering. I got to make these choices. One of these choices is going to be the final winner, and that'll be covered in a future video.